Week 14 was on your way last night with the Los Angeles Rams beating the Patriots 24-3. But here's a few running backs I have as sleepers this week for Week 14. The first guy's Todd Johnson of the New York Jets. Last week we saw Johnson fill in for Frank Gore after Gore went out very early in that ball game with concussion-like symptoms. Johnson, he got a full workload, and he put up big numbers last week. Was Johnson versus the Vegas Raiders, where he had 22 carries for 104 yards and a touchdown, and he added 2 catches for 13 yards, and he had 19.7 fantasy points. And Johnson, honestly, he should be starting the rest of the way. LaMichael Pirines hurt. The Jets are 0-11. They're probably going to lose, or 0-12, whatever it is. They're probably going to lose the rest of their ball games this season. And Johnson's a young guy that Detroit gave up on early last season, and now the Jets have him. And last week he looked good, and this week it is a little bit of a tough matchup at Seattle, but they still give up the 9th most fantasy points to running backs. Johnson, if he could get a full workload, we saw what he was capable of doing. And the thing is, he was a good waiver wire ad also. He was in my waiver video for the week, and he got owned in 35% of leagues. His percentage went up. So Todd Johnson, he's the first sleeper of running back. The second sleeper is Peyton Barber of the Washington football team. Barber, he's going to start most likely here for this Washington team. Antonio Gibson, he's doubtful for this ball game with the foot injury. And this week it's an alright matchup versus San Francisco. I know they don't give up a lot of rushing yards on the ground, but Barber, he's a good goal line guy and short yardage guy. He's going to be here for the Washington football team. J.D. McKissick, obviously, he's going to play most likely most of the snaps, but goal line and short yardage, I could see Barber in this game be a sneaky play with 40 or 50 total yards and finding the end zone in this one versus San Francisco. So Barber, he's available in 93% of fantasy leagues, and he's a guy you could go out there and get if you got the Gibson injury or you have a Christian McCaffrey owner or whatever the deal is. So Peyton Barber, I think he's a good sleeper this week. And the third and final running back I have as a sleeper this week's Jeffrey Wilson Jr. of the San Francisco 49ers. Wilson Jr., it seems like he's getting most of the work now over the last 2 weeks. Him and Mostert, 60-40 split. Last week, he got a lot of work, was Wilson Jr. 7 carries, 47 yards, 2 catches, 12 yards on 5 targets. So this 9 of teams using him. The matchup ain't all that great, but if Wilson's going to get goal line carries, like I said, and catch a few passes out of the backfield, you could have much worse options. And it's depending the situation you're in. I know it's a playoffs this week for just about everyone, unless you play the Week 17, but most people don't. But anyway, Jeffrey Wilson Jr., if he could sneak a touchdown in there and get 60, 70 yards total in this game, he's not a bad play. So that's a few running backs I have as sleepers here heading into Week 14.